Good morning, good morning.
Oh.
It's time to start the day. Good morning to you.
You had your coffee.
I had my kombucha. That gets me really high. It's alcohol. No, it's not. I'm kidding. Ooh, I've seen that nice painting. Look at that one Craig did.
Okay.
Donna,
Right.
did you sign up for any of the classes with our favorite guy over there, Drew?
Yes, I did.
Me too. Which one you taking?
Taking the drawing class, and I'm taking one of the enhanced watercolor classes.
Yeah, me too. I'll see you in class.
Yeah, me
Which
too.
one are you doing?
The one you guys are doing, Rebecca.
Thursday?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Thursday.
doing that too. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we've been Zooming. Or some of us art people have been not Zooming, been watching Zoom classes and chit-chatting on the side forever. Right, guys?
Yeah.
As a former teacher, I'm going to take your Zoom away if you keep passing notes during class.
You'll never know.
Well, no, it's being recorded, so we'll know.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's secret.
I
It's on
can
our iPhones.
Stop video.
Oh, I can. Chat is always recordable.
Oh,
Not
it
on the
is?
chat.
Oh, host can see everything.
Well, we all love to chat.
Yeah, don't I know it? Well, I think we could probably get going. We got, oh, here's one person. One person is waiting is Kelly Bargavos. I think she has some relationship with Craig.
Whoa, doorbell.
Hey.
Glory Giffen said she might be a little late because some maniac knocked her right side rearview mirror off the side of her car. So she's
Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
saw that.
right now. So we'll see. I'll keep checking the list and seeing if she's in. Craig, I think you might as well get started with your spiel. If you are
Yeah.
ready.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all for coming today. And hopefully, I can show you something, and you can take that back to your studio and implement it. And I just hope too that everybody's being safe. And it's been some wild times, but this is like one of the times I'm really glad I'm an artist, because I can go out to the studio and kind of all that stuff in the world just goes away for a few hours. So. But let me go through, I got, several paintings I want to show you. So this is one when I was up at California Watercolor Association in that show. This is the library, the old library. This is in Syracuse, New York. It's downtown.
Is that pre-pandemic?
That one is, yes. Yeah. So then this is Old Town. I have like 3 or 4 of these that I did, and I wanted to show you, you can take one subject and really get a lot of paintings out of it. So we have that one and this one, so it's very similar, but it's just a different viewpoint, like really zoomed in a little bit. And then, where these were on the right side of this tree. So that's Old Town.
Let me see if I can do that. Hang on a second. I'll find my.
And then this is San Diego Orchestra.
Just a minute. I'm going to send it to you here, I think. How do I do this here?
Ralph, mute yourself, Ralph, if you're talking.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. And then here's a street person I painted. And here's the orchestra also. This is the band leader. This is more of a poured painting. And here's, I got a little crazy with crayon diache, the watercolor crayons. That's why it looks a little different. And this is Brooklyn Public Library.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Very
Love
clean.
that one. Great.
And this is Imperial Beach,
Ooh.
like the community center right there, and where all the showers are. This is New York City, one of the carriages.
Wow.
And these are just gas and water pumps. Here's the band leader, same guy. This is in my hometown. This is where I used to ride my bike, you know, maybe like a mile to get ice cream. When I was growing up.
Cute.
And this is the last, I did the paint out in La Mesa right when everything was happening. So I think this was in March. So that was the last time I think we all got together outside. And this is New York Public Library. And I have some verticals coming your way here. So here's that same old town, but just in vertical now. My telephone pole with all the electricity and stuff. Some birds. And this was up in Pleasanton also.
Craig,
Yes.
how do you describe your style?
What I'm showing you now is directly painted. So I direct paint and I really emphasize value.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see how I prepare for painting. I'm going to kind of walk you through that as I paint the demo. So I'll show you how I do that with the markers and everything.
Thank you.
Sure.
I can get my markers.
Yeah. And then here's a church downtown. And this is New York City. And these last two, I was telling Ralph, I don't know if everybody heard, but I'm taking a workshop right now, an online workshop from Lori Goldstein Warren, and it's a pouring workshop. So we pour watercolors and we pour fluid acrylics. So this one is watercolor. You can see how you get the glow. So there's like 3 pours here.
Did you mask the white, Craig?
Yeah, so it's really kind of weird, not weird, but what I like about her way of doing it is whatever's the darkest dark in the photo, you mask everything else. And then your second pour, you mask the next value and then the next. And then you have 4 values with the white being your lightest. And then that's one too that I did. So this one is fluid acrylic and the other one was watercolor. So there's advantages and disadvantages of watercolor and acrylic. Acrylic, you don't have to worry about scrubbing, the layer off below. But, one of the disadvantages with acrylic is you can't go in and scrub or lighten anything either. So.
Those are really vibrant. I love those. Beautiful job.
All right. So what I'm doing, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I put the lines darker than normal. This is the boathouse by the Hotel Del. So the way I usually come across, so here's a black and white picture of what I'm doing. Everything's reversed here. So it's the boathouse, and I've cropped it in a software and everything. And you can see there's probably 30 palm trees, and I whittled those down to maybe 6. We don't need all those. I removed, let's see, 2 buildings behind this one. I removed those. So you just want to look at your photos and kind of weed out things that don't really need to be there. You know, as artists, that's where we need to bring in our artistic license and make a better painting, right? You know, if it was a great photo already, we probably don't want to paint that, you know, because it's art already. You know? So the way I go about it is I make value drawings with markers. So I usually have like a fine Sharpie and then a black, and then I have 2 grayscale, usually a number 3 and a number 6, and that's a chart pack. But if you use Prismacolor, it's going to be a 30% and a 60%. What you want to do is just kind of split the values, you know, 0 to 9 or 0 to 10. You want to go split that in thirds so that you get the different range of grays. Does that make sense?
Can you say again, Craig, can you say again what they're Sharpies, all of them?
No, so I'll show you what they are
Oh,
here.
thanks.
Yep. So here's my little marker purse. So they're chart pack. The chart pack markers. So that's a number 6. Yeah. So I do a number 3 and a number 6 for the gray values. And then I have a fine Sharpie that I do the contour drawing with. And then, you know, just a black marker to do the
Ralph,
black.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
We hear you, Ralph.
Mary, who can't you hear?
Can we make your picture larger on the screen? I'm just getting it in the center. How do I get it my full screen on my computer? I have a MacBook Pro.
Me too. It's also centered. It's not that huge. I would like it to make it bigger. Is there a way to do that?
Yes, there's controls that you have to go into, and you define, you know, which way you want it. So I don't know if you want to do it in the middle of class or not.
I think we're going to have to make it work here because I'm not sure about doing controls.
Okay.
All right. And by my value sketch, you know, all my center of interest is going to be right here. So that's why you see all the whites and everything. So, you know, I have the white of the paper, the lighter gray, the darker gray, and then black. So that's the way I do my value sketches. And even though I print out pictures and I have a zillion pictures that I print out from the drugstore, when I go to paint, I just paint from this. I don't use the photo, because if I use the photo, then I'm going to see 40 street signs that need to be in there and all kinds of things. And then I'm going to be influenced by the color that's in the photo also. So here, I like to just react to what's on the page. So, you know, I'll take that, and that's the way I like to work. I don't like to have something completely planned out and be so static and stale. So, and one thing too is I moved to, because I use big old brushes, like a 1.5 or 2 inch. So I moved to a Sterling Edwards palette. So you can see how big those little wells are, right? So normally I'm trying to dip my corner of the brush, and I love the palette that I've had, and I've had it for probably 15, 20 years. So I'm still getting used to this one, but I think it's gonna be better in the long run. So, all right, so let's get painting. Anybody have any questions before I get started?
Oh, Craig, this is Ralph. I just wanted to mention that what you're saying comes back to some stuff that I learned from Jim Millard quite a while ago about how you're basically just making shapes and interesting shapes, and you have the grayscale drawing to look at, and you can make those gray things anything you want, any color you want that will work for you. So it's very liberating.
Certain value, so it can be any color.
Craig, on your paint,
I could paint this sketch that I have 3 or 4 or 5 times, and each time it's going to be different because I put a different color here than there, and then I'm reacting somewhere else.
It's like Monet haystacks.
Yeah, exactly, haystacks, Monet. So one other thing is I have some masking tape that I put on, instead of masking fluid. And I just cut out some, stable folds and some of the white areas that I want to resist. And then I'll take those off at certain points of the demo. And I usually use just an X-Acto knife. And, you just got to be careful how much pressure you put. When you first start doing this, you're probably going to go right through the paper. Well, you'll feel how much pressure you need if you do that a lot. All right, here we go. So I'm looking at my drawing over here, and we'll go a little traditional here. We'll do a blue sky. And I'm not wetting the sky. You can see I'm doing long strokes. And I'm getting that all the way in the paper, right? I'm not taking a little brush like this and doing 900 strokes to do that.
Are you painting on an easel?
So I'm painting on an elevated surface. So it's kind of like a something you put on your lap that has adjustments. And a lot of times I do my skies upside down, but with my the room I have right now, I'd have to kind of adjust everything.
What's the advantage of doing upside down, Craig?
Just gravity helps me out. So I would do it, push everything upside down, and then it makes it easier for me to do a graded wash, because once they put it upright, then gravity comes back down and helps me out. I know it doesn't make sense because you're not seeing what I'm saying, but. All right. So I'm painting around these palm trees a little bit. And I'm going right over the sail in certain parts.
You're using magnesium blue there?
Yep, this manganese. It's one of my favorites.
Why do you like it?
I like it, I like this a lot better than cerulean because number one, it's transparent. And number two, it does have some granularity to it. And I like Daniel Smith on that, so every paint company you buy, if you buy a cobalt blue from Daniel Smith, it's different than Winsor Newton, which is different than American Journey. And, so each one, think of making cookies, everybody has their own recipe.
You said because it's transparent, and then one other thing I didn't hear.
It has a sedimentation. It has a granularity. So all these little pieces of the metal, the manganese, will settle in the tooth of the paper.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Craig, we had a class with Riza Parberry who taught us about granulation.
Oh yeah, she really depends on it. If you look at hers, she really gets into that. And I'm just putting some cobalt blue just to change the sky up a little bit. Yeah, Reese, her non-objective paintings, I forget what she calls them, some kind of flow something, but she really uses the granularity aspect of the color. Yeah, the sky, pretty much. I'm gonna come in and just do a little accent something here. Because I think this purple color that I'm putting is actually going to be down in the water, so I kind of want to make it a little cohesive. I want to pick up some of these puddles too. So I don't want those to run on me.
Did you put purple in there?
Yeah, I put a little, what is it? Wild fuchsia
Yeah.
up there.
Craig, do you change the colors in your palette very often, or do you basically use the same ones most of the time with maybe a few extra things thrown in?
You know, it's funny you ask. With this workshop, Lori Goldstein Warren, she kind of got me convinced to pare down my colors. So I used to have about 17 or 18 colors on my palette, and she pares down to 5. I'm not quite comfortable restricting myself that much yet, but I have about 10 on my palette now that I use, which is, you know, but for actual painting, I'll probably only use 5 or 6.
Greg,
so
do
now-
you put fresh colors every time you're going to do a painting?
Yeah, so I squeeze out a whole tube of color in each one of these wells. And I paint enough where, you know, I spritz them before I put the cover on. So all my colors will stay, you know, nice and juicy. And one thing I also do is put a wet sponge in there, which will keep the moisture level going also.
A good idea.
Yep. So I'm doing some of these palm trees, and I don't want them all that green, right? So I want to go in and change some. You know, if I want to neutralize that green, we just come in with a red, right? Because it's right across the street on the color wheel.
Green is that?
Are you using your greens?
Yeah, so I make my greens. And I'm using, let's see, that same manganese blue with quinacridone gold. You know, and then connecting some of these shapes. And as it gets out in the sky, you see how that one bled? That's what I kind of want to happen. So that not everything's hard edge. I get some different edges. I do have one here that I'm going to put as like a foil around these. All right. I think that's enough palm trees. All right, so now about what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to look for colors here.
Craig?
Yep.
So the angle that you have, for example, the boathouse, you know, it's kind of on the side. Can you talk to us about maybe why you chose that angle, if that was a specific choice?
Yeah, so my wife and I were out on a friend's boat, on a sailboat. You know, we came in the bay where this is. So I think this is a much more interesting side of the boathouse than the street side. And, you know, just because there's all kinds of things happening and, you know, boats for rent and people. And, you know, I even put some people up here that weren't there. And, you know, if you looked at my photo, there's no people at all. But, you know, I put some people around, you know, just to make it interesting.
But did you like it from basically two sides, you know, where you've got the little gables all kind of at a nice angle so you can get depth? Was that?
Yeah, so what I like are the shadows, right? And, you know, so I'm going to have some obliques here in the shadows. So that's going to push your eye right here in my center of interest. So any of my work, you'll see that I'm pushing you to look at a certain place, you know? It's not a coincidence that your eye goes to a certain place, hopefully. I'm doing my job right.
Craig, if
You
the
know,
triangular sail of that sailboat is going to be your center of interest, shouldn't the sky be a little bit darker in behind that to make more contrast?
yeah, you know, this right here is going to be my center of interest. It's going to be lower here. You know, so if we're looking at the quadrants, you know, so I'm going to be right here is really going to be impactful. So I actually might tone the top of this down a little bit and leave, you know, a whiter area here than the sail up above. That's the plan anyways. I'm going to take another palm tree right across the mast here. So when I peel those up, you know, I have some overlapping going on. So you'll get a little depth there. And I'm feeling with the back of my hand, you know, how wet things are. You know, you don't want to use your finger side where your fingerprints are because there's so much oil there. And a lot of times if you're sweating or if you really have a lot of oil on your fingers, you can actually do a resist so that, you know, no paint will actually go to the area. That's why I always use the back side of your hand or finger. All right, so now let's start painting this guy here. So I'm going to paint whatever is going to be red here. And I have these areas of masking so I can just paint right over it. So I don't have to be careful, you know, paint around everything. So here I can just paint everything that's not highlighted, you know, so whatever's not white here, I'm going to paint red. And then we'll come back in later with a darker shadow color. You know, and with everything, you want to kind of adjust and change your colors. You know, I don't want to go into CAD red and do CAD red everywhere. You know, let's make it nice and interesting for the people looking at our paintings. You know, and I don't even know what color red that is that the Hotel Del and this has, but it never seems to fade unless somebody's out there painting the roof all the time, you know?
Are you thinking about where the light is coming from when you're doing those yellows?
Yeah, that's why I'm being a little cautious right now. So here I can just power everything, you know? So mixing that same Quin yellow or Quin gold in there just to make things vibrate. And you know, I don't want that same color, because if you took that same color, yeah, it's probably closer to what it is, but it becomes really static and dull, you know, and we don't want that.
Craig, your illustration, your drawing to start with, how much time did that take you to do that first?
Well, what I work out is these value drawings, you know? Okay. I'll do as many of these as I need to work it out in my head so that I'm comfortable. And then to actually draw, it's not too bad. You know, I do the quadrants, and then I'm just drawing a 2-inch square, mostly. And then
Craig, when you say quadrant,
I'm not worried about the overall drawing, right? Because all I got to worry about is this 2-inch square that links to another 2-inch square, you know?
Good.
So,
yeah.
So Craig, you grid off your value study then to then do the transfer to the...
Yeah, I put a really light grid on there. Little crazy overhang there. Let's see. And all that's going to be in white here. Except for some shadows here. And that's just the overhang, kind of like the shadow. So I'm going to leave all this white here so it's a little more impactful. You know, if you looked at my reference photo, you'd say, well, it's not like that, right? But I'm changing it because that's the way I want to paint it. And that's the way I think that I can create a lot of dimension and, you know, thrust in the painting with the highlights and everything. So I'm customizing this so that you look this way. Right? And I painted over the windows here because you can actually see through this. And when I come in with the shadow areas, I'll cut around these windows here and it'll look like you're looking right through it. And then there's a little baby building here. I think this is actually where you rent the boats. So it's kind of modeled like that, same kind of colors. You know, so we're getting a lot of, you know, complementary colors here. So that's really starting to spark things off. Trying to think how I want to do this so that things dry the right way. When you paint a demo, you got to think about things drying and then how you're going to do your final glaze of color and everything.
Craig, what about reflections in the water? What are you thinking about there?
This one, you know, I thought that, but if I put a reflection here, I think I would just cordon it off so much more that, so I'm really exaggerating where the horizon is, right, in this painting, you know? So I really have the horizon at an extreme low point. So I felt that if I did have a reflection here that went off, it might be too distracting.
Would lead the viewer's eye out of the painting?
Right, exactly. And I'm just cutting in, there's a little porch here. And I like that I'm picking up part of that color here and there. I'm gonna downshift to a smaller brush, a 1-inch brush. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna stay big here. So I want to put a glaze over this side because it's in shadow.
Good.
And this is going to be darker, so it doesn't matter if some of this color is leaching. I actually like it, you know, it's kind of watercolory.
Oh, I like that.
I do too.
Good.
At some point, I'd love to see what your palette looks like, right? You know, how much.
Yeah, so so I got two different palettes. Let me see. I need to stall for a little time here anyway. So here's my big palette that I showed you, and then I'm using these like little wells. So it's about a 3-inch square. So I'm doing my 3 yellows, my 3 reds, and my 3 blues. Not that I'm using all of them, but I make a little puddle so that I'm mixing on the paper instead of on the palette. All right, how are we in frame? Pretty good. And it is a little more vibrant than it's shown on the iPhone. That's something I need to do too. When I do buy a digital camera, I need to do a color check somehow. I know even at the San Diego Watercolor Society, I've done some demos there, and you know, people are like, "Why are you using that color?" And then I turn the painting around, and they're like, "Oh, you know, it's so much better than it looks on the camera itself." So, all right, I'm gonna get some juice going here.
Greg, is the sky usually darker at the zenith up high?
Yeah, so you know, it depends on the time of day, but normally during the daytime, if you look outside, it'll be darker up at the top, and then as it gets closer to the horizon, it's lighter. But all that kind of flip-flops, depending on what kind of sunset you're having and that kind of thing.
And cloud patterns and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So there are exceptions. So I want to get some thick old paint here. You can see I've done like 4 passes here, and it's not getting muddy because I'm not introducing that third primary, right? So there's no yellow mixed in here at all on these colors. All right, and then when this dries a little bit, there's a pier here, and we'll do a really dark color and let that melt into the water so that we don't have a hard line.
Craig, you come into your painting multiple times. How do you avoid getting blooms?
So I do have some blooms in the sky. I have one here and one here, and I actually have one here, but the blooms actually don't bother me that much unless, you know, I want a really smooth area, you know, I'll be really careful what I do there. So you just got to be conscious of how much water and paint you have in your brush.
I'm fascinated with your water there. You've got blue and turquoise in there?
Yep. Well, this is, I have manganese blue, cobalt blue. I have some wild fuchsia and some permanent magenta.
Oh.
So all those play well together.
Yeah.
So now if let's say I put cerulean blue, they wouldn't play together very well, you know, because cerulean has the yellow and it would cause like a muddy effect here. You know, these, I don't even know what these things are, but I'm kind of just blocking these guys in so that they're not just standing there alone, you know. So maybe they're coolers or something to go on the boat. You know, I'm not sure what they are. You know, and I'm just painting random things to make it look, oh, it could be a boat, you know, because, you know, we see all these stanchions, but, or not stanchions, but these rigging poles. And we don't need to say, hey, this is a 35-foot whatever, you know. All we have to do is just kind of pretend or suggest that we have some boats over here. Okay, so this is dry enough. So it's almost too dry. I'll get some blue in there. It's right under the deck there. It should be a little darker than when it hits the water. Then I'll make that boat come out further. That's good. And let's see, I had some flowers here. They had some kind of flower pot. So I think I'm gonna put that. And we don't really need to get too detailed, but you know. But what I wanted to do is dry before I put on the frosting, the actual the darkest shadow here. You see how that's moving in that wet paint? It's exactly what I wanted to do. And I do have some, let me paint these figures here real quick. His head, I think he's holding a cooler or something, either for the fish or some beer, I'm not sure. He's got his shirt off. Keep hitting my head on this camera. It's usually not there when I'm painting here. And these are the windows.
Craig, sometime could you take the camera and move it closer to the painting so we could see the detail that you've done already?
Yeah, sure thing. All right. Let me just put these windows in real quick.
What is your dark there?
What's that?
What color are you using for, I can't quite tell. Is it a bluish color, blue browns?
Yeah, it's kind of like a blue. I have some of the quinacridone burnt orange. And I'm mixing that with some cobalt. And those are the things I want to dry first before I actually go out and do my shadow. See, if you do a bad stroke like that, you can just come back and just wet that. All right, then I have some really dark areas behind these people. So I want those to dry a little bit. So I think in that time, let me get you closer to the painting here. So, you know, we're getting up there. That's where the people are going to be. You know, this is kind of like the, I took a workshop from Frank Francis, and he says that right now is the ugly period of the painting, you know, because everything's kind of living by itself. And once you put the shadows on it and everything on, it'll all come together.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So
Sorry,
I'm
you
gonna
said
take
once you put the what on?
the shadows.
Shadows, thank
Yeah. So I have a little stripe here. So I gotta think about what color I want that to be.
Craig, I may have missed it. What type of masking fluid do you like to use?
So I'm not using any with this, but when I do use masking fluid, I use, actually I have it right here. The Pueblo.
Uh-huh. Great.
I like that a lot.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to take this edge off a little bit, just because it's billowed out this way a little bit, so that we just show a little bit of 3-dimension here. Okay. So that's a really dark area behind here. And this is where I'm directing your eye. Then this black area, this really dark area, you're gonna want to stay here a little bit and find out what's going on. Hopefully.
That's the intention anyway.
Yeah. But you know, you all paint, so you all know too that, you know, sometimes our intentions don't always add up, you know, and you kind of have to be flexible, you know. I really found that out since I've been doing a lot of demos and workshops, you know, especially if I have to paint up more upright than I'm used to, that, you know, I get a lot of runs and everything, and I just kind of have to live with them and react to them. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and start taking some of these off. Actually, hang on, I'm gonna address these people here. And she's got like some kind of sun dress or something. I got that yellow there, yellow there. You know, maybe have a yellow, so we do like a little triangle there. And you got blue. You know, this is the fun time when you kind of fool around and make things happen. All right, so those dressed. Think about if I still need some of these things, and I don't think I do. So there's that. These things are the big old concrete things. I think the boats tie up to, or the actual pier goes up and down on, so that the pier doesn't move. So I'll take this whole thing.
Craig, is the masking tape you used just plain old artist masking tape, or?
Yeah, it's so, you know, I go to either Dixieline or Home Depot or Lowe's, one of those, but they do make two different kinds of masking tape, and I found that out the hard way. So it's the 3M or Scotch 3M. Where are you? There you go. And it's just a regular adhesion, but they do make a greener masking tape, so it's not as sticky, as I found out. So I was doing a motorcycle painting and spent all this time and hours and cutting everything out. And after my first wash, I saw that all the colors were seeping underneath it, and I was heartbroken.
So which is the type not to use?
The greener one. So to say environmental friendly or something like that, stay away from that if you want to use this technique. And once I take all this off, you'll kind of really start to see why I went through the trouble of putting it on, because it helped me so much rather than to paint around everything.
Greg, how did you manage all those little shapes? Did you have a tracing over it, or did you just do that freehand cutting, or did you draw over the tape, or?
I draw, on the paper itself, and then this masking tape, when you press it down, you can actually see through it.
Oh, okay.
Then I can actually cut my shapes the way I want.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how you got all those shapes in the right places and the right length and width.
Yes, keep some secrets.
I know. Yeah, well, we'll squeeze them out of him.
Yeah, I'm not that good. Or that lucky, I should say. So we're almost done with all these. But you see how all these turrets pop out now? Yeah, I got a little puddle here. I want to just take care of.
Craig, do you get any pushback from jurors who look at your stuff and say, "Oh my God, look at those sharp edges and so forth. Why didn't he just, paint around the white areas or whatever?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, not that I've heard verbally, but I don't get into every show I enter, so maybe that's why. But also, I could actually come in and soften this because I'm using Fabriano 140 pounds rough paper. So I'll show you I have like a little scrubber here, like an oil brush. So I go into clean water, and then if I wanted, let's say I want this edge softer, I just go in and, I can soften it like that. So it's not like arches used to be, or arches is sometimes. Whereas, if you put paint on arches, good luck getting it off. And that's kind of why I've moved to Fabriano.
Just for the other artists in here, Fabriano the factory makes two types of paper. One is during the day shift, apparently, they make Fabriano. During the night shift, they make Kilimanjaro that Cheap Joe sells.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that. Cool.
So I think it's a little cheaper.
Is the quality similar?
Exactly. I've used Kilimanjaro, and it's they only have cold press. I like rough, but it's not a bad paper. And if you use 300, they do have some 300-pound paper too. That's cheaper than the others.
What's the weight of your paper?
140. I just paint so much that if I use 300-pound paper, I'd be broke, and it's almost 2.5 times more expensive to paint on 300-pound paper. All right, and then
you didn't stretch this paper. This is 140, and sometimes people stretch that. You just are painting on a flat surface and don't worry about the taping it down.
Actually, it is taped down. I'll show you that too at the end. So I have a little system that I use. I'll show it to you now. So I take 2-inch roll of paper of tape, and I make these however long I need to, and then I just roll it on each other so that I have a tube of sticky tape, and then I put it around the perimeter. So that I don't have to put the tape on the outside of the paper or on top of the paper to create that white edge. And that helps me out in two ways, so that, I tend to paint the same size or 3 or 4 different sizes. And that way, when it comes time to frame, I don't have to worry about, is this painting going to fit in this frame and all that kind of nonsense, So I can paint a standard size.
What size is that painting?
So this one's square. This is 22 by 22. So I do 22 by 22. I do a half sheet. I do a full sheet, and then I do my 11 by 30. So that's a half sheet the long ways. So those are pretty much all my dimensions for my frame. So whatever I'm doing, I'll probably have a frame for it. See what, and I'm just dropping color here just to make it a little more interesting.
Craig, I went to a demo by Bob Burridge a year or so ago, and he was asked, "How do you know when you're done with your painting?" And he said, first of all, he names his painting, and then when the name matches the painting, then he's done.
Good idea. That's something I have a hard time sometimes is my name. You know, some artists work from the name, you know, they name it first before they even start, you know. For me, the name actually develops as I paint it. And sometimes, you know, I actually need help to name the painting. All right, and then I'm going to tone this down. I think like we talked about earlier. But you mentioned Bob Burridge. He's quite a character. If you've ever been to a demonstration or a workshop with him, he's pretty flamboyant and vibrant. But I did a business workshop with him and his wife, and he's a lot of fun.
Craig, what would you say to painting the boat the same color as the boathouse roof? Is that would that be a bad thing, or what's your thought on that?
It wouldn't be that bad, you know, but you know, we kind of know what a sailboat looks like. You know, most of the time they're white, and you know, just because it's another curved area, it's usually darker at the bottom and it's lighter up here. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to have this color somewhere down here, you know, so maybe this person's shirt, I'll have that color.
Great. I just want to ask again about the color you put in the windows. I think you told me it was blue and orange. Is that correct?
Yeah, blue and quinacridone burnt orange. So it's kind of like a burnt sienna.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it ends up a kind of a neutral tint, really, but
right,
with
exactly.
color.
And the blue was a cobalt? A cobalt?
Cobalt blue.
Yeah, and orange.
Yep. I forgot one of these. Yeah. Now we're just about ready to really have fun, you know. The fun time for me is putting the shadows, because this thing will really come alive. But I usually get it to this point, and then there's some kind of form or something there. But, all right. So I'm getting a few different shadow colors mixed up. Because when I do this, especially with it being Fabriano paper, I have one shot at this. So I don't want to go in like 3 or 4 times because I'm going to ruin the freshness of the color. Almost there, making some puddles.
What colors are you mixing up?
So I have a manganese blue and my wild fuchsia, and then I have a cobalt blue and wild fuchsia, and then I have a cobalt blue and permanent magenta. And usually in these puddles, I have a red side and a blue side so that, you know, I'll double dip. So I have blue on this side and red on this side. So if I put it down and it's too blue, then I can come back in with a red. This is where I want to look at my drawing again, because this is what I've been working with here all the time. This is where I get all my values and everything, so I want to make sure that those are correct. I'll put a little blue right there, let that mix together. No stanchions.
Craig,
Yeah.
what is a wild fuchsia? Is that like a magenta?
It's almost like an opera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's very like pinkish kind of.
Is that Daniel Smith?
Yeah.
Tran-
That was the American Journey. I'm sorry.
it's transparent, is it?
It is very transparent. Yep.
Sorry, whose was it?
Go ahead.
It's not Daniel Smith, it's somebody else.
Right. So I have some colors that are Daniel Smith, some that are Holbein, and so it all depends on the actual formula of the color.
What's that orangey color you're using again?
Or-
Quinacridone gold?
Here?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was Quinn Gold and
Quinn
Wild
burnt
Fuchsia.
orange.
I'm sorry? Burnt orange?
And Quinn Gold and the Wild Fuchsia.
Ah.
So here I'm just going right over these. You know, this is where working with watercolor is great because you can see the layer underneath, right?
We're seeing mostly your head.
I'm sorry. And that's way too red for me. So put a little blue there. It makes a nice purple. See, I don't want you to fly off the edge of the side, so we'll put some kind of wash here. I feel the water's not dark enough, so we'll get another little boost. Okay. And this part of this guy up here. Leave that little highlight. And we have that chiseled edge, or I have a scraper that I use. And we just want to scrape in some of the stanchions here. So not all of them, just put a few in.
So the area that you're scraping, is that wet or dry or halfway in between?
Yeah, so that's wet, and it all depends on how wet it is. So if it's too wet, then just like you're shoveling wet snow, all the snow comes back in and fills it up again. Or if you're making spaghetti sauce or some kind of, if you do that little spoon thing, like the French way, if it leaves a path, that's why you want to, when it's wet, you want to almost do it when the sheen is off. So it's still wet if you want a white line. Now, if you want a dark line, then you do it when it's wet, and then all that color will go back into that trough.
Good advice.
Right.
Are these shadows in your value study?
Yep. If you look at my value study,
Yeah.
there,
There,
and then
there.
look there. Yeah. Right on track. So I always say that that's my roadmap for my painting. So if I ever forget where I'm going, I just look at that and get back on track.
Where do you see your light source in your photo?
It's coming from, this way. It's probably like right over here. I'm not sure what flag that is, but we put something there. This happens every once in a while. I have a piece of tape that I didn't take off. I want to get that while it's wet. And then, like, I can scrape up that side, this side. Maybe some of these are catching sunlight somehow. Missed it. But the good thing, and a lot of people don't know this, is with Fabriano, I can wet this again, and I can actually scrape back. But with arches, you can't do that. And I'll show that. And let's see, I want to darken a few of these tall trees. Right. And then this white is very, very stark. I don't want it that white. So I'll come in, just a lighter, like shadow color, and tone that down a little bit. This one looks like it's on the other side, so I'm going to get that one dark. Maybe that's a darker one. Same over here. And then I have some areas to finish up here. So there's windows in the boat. Darker here. And you can see I'm not being too careful about these windows, and I'm just doing a suggestion of them. And I have this brush. It's a really long, kind of like a rigger, but it holds a lot of paint. It's a Cheap Joe's. It's called a Loosey Goosey. So I do a lot of my finish work with this. So I want to show you an area. So let's say I wanted this one highlighted with that scrape method I told you about. So I just wet that. I let it dry so that I don't get a bloom. But now I can come back in and scrape. You see how we got that? If I want another one here, in here maybe. Okay, cool. And I got this brush here, so we'll do a little, we'll straighten up some of these. Maybe they see a little shadow.
Which number is your loosey goosey?
And I got my glasses on too, I can't see. Let's see, it is a 3. I probably have these lines in the wrong spot. If somebody actually sales. I'm sure I'm not doing it right, but and I want to take that one. Okay. A few touches here and there. And we'd see the inside of that frame. Okay. And then this is the brush I usually sign with and do really fine stuff. So it's like a mop brush meta rigger. Yeah. And since everything's happening over here, I'm just going to put my signature over here.
If Craig doesn't mind, could Craig send a photo of that to Ralph to send to us? If
Yeah, sure thing. Yep.
Thanks for the suggestion.
If you have a Mac, you can take a screenshot with a Open Apple Shift 3. It'll give you a screenshot.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
I thought it might be better if we got a first-hand photo, but maybe Mac does it.
Just to jump ahead a little bit, we are recording this, and I'm going to get a chance to work on the recording for a little bit. It won't be out right away, but I will send a copy to Craig, and we'll also post it on our YouTube channel, Tuesday Art Group. And so you can observe this all over again and paint along if you want. And I think that'll could be useful. And Craig, I'm going to mail the check out today.
Okay.
And, the next tag demo is going to be Kathleen Scoggin on July 14th. So please join us for that. And also, I have a question whether we want to do a Zoom non-demo meeting on the 4th Tuesday, which would be June 23rd from 9:45 to 10:45, just to touch base and see how we're doing and talk about what we're doing. I'm going to unmute everybody. Let's see here. I think I'm going to, yeah.
You mute.
I'm trying to unmute everybody here, just a second. I don't see an unmute all. Let's see here.
We can unmute ourselves.
Okay.
We can unmute
Pretty
ourselves.
capable.
Okay. So anyway, let me know
Maybe-
what you think about a June 23rd non-demo Zoom.
This is Steve. I'm for it.
I'm for it.
Ralph, I am.
Sure.
Sure, sounds good.
John
Yeah,
Roberts.
we
Yep, me too.
bring something to
Me too.
share.
This
at
is
that
Sharon.
meeting.
Okay,
I want
and I will
Craig
set
to
that up.
That means we have to paint between now and then.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
What
We
time are
won't
you
know
saying?
when you painted it, Mary.
9:45?
Yeah, 9:45 to 10:45 on Tuesday. I've got something right after that, so I have to do it at that time. And setting it at an hour, that way we can cut it off so we don't go on too long.
Oh, I have, I need someone to help me with the PayPal, how to do that, unless you want me just to send you a check, Ralph.
You could send a check,
Okay, okay.
but PayPal is pretty straightforward. You have to
I
sign
have an
up.
account. I just don't know how to, I don't know how to put your phone number. I don't know how to pay somebody as an individual. I usually just click on, you know, so.
Any advice from anybody on that?
Somebody could walk her through it. It's really easy.
Walk us all through it. Yeah, or can I can just use my Chase app and just pay you, but I think that's more complicated than PayPal. But yeah, walk us all through it.
I think we just put in the phone number.
Please.
You
You go into the PayPal app and you go, and
we opened up the app, put in your, logged in as you, and then I don't remember there was much more than putting in the phone number and sending, but I don't.
Send it to 858-531-0890.
Yeah, it comes in pretty quick.
And they actually tell you when you do it that it's going to Ralph.
Yeah, and then I get a receipt or a notice that I've got money coming in, which is nice.
Okay, that just to clarify, 858-531-0890.
Correct.
Okay.
And doing it through Chase is very simple.
Okay.
Either way works. Yeah.
And we do it through, yeah.
Look at that picture. Oh my God.
Gorgeous, gorgeous picture.
Beautiful. Another winner.
Can't believe it was all done so quickly. My gosh.
Yeah.
Of course, he did a lot of prep.
Good planning. Beautiful, Craig.
Planning matters.
That's right.
Gorgeous.
It really
You know, you haven't ever really seen that view of the boathouse. It's a really unique view.
Yeah, I need a boat.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Take a kayak.
Yeah, kayak, that'll work.
Hey, Greg, if you got a few minutes, tell us again what you think your favorite palette colors are going to be.
You talking to Craig?
Yeah.
Can Craig hear us? He's muted.
Oh, yes. Okay. He said he was going to use apparently about 6.
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe you can unmute him, John.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, good.
I don't know how I got muted, but so it's the core 5 are going to be Antwerp blue, quinacridone rose, cobalt blue, and quinacridone gold, along with lamp black. I was totally against using lamp black, but in this workshop I'm in, it actually makes sense. But the other colors that I do have on my palette are the manganese blue, which I think I will keep. I have some neutral tint, some ultramarine, I have some permanent magenta. I have that wild fuchsia, and then I have like a lemon yellow.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And you said they're a mixture of different paints from different
Right, yeah. So The Daniel Smith colors are the quinacrinones and the neutral tint. I have a yellow from Holbein, and the manganese is also Daniel Smith, and then the rest are American Journey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love American Journey just because you get a 37 milliliter tube, and you squeeze that out, and you still have, a half a tube left. So
It's good quality paint.
Yeah, it's really good quality. It makes me feel like I'm not spending so much money.
Yeah.
So that wild fuchsia is a American Journey color?
Yes. Yep.
Oh.
So Craig, tell me again, you have all these main colors in your palette. You have a cover for your palette. You put a sponge in there to keep things damp. You spritz the colors a little bit. So do you ever clean out your palette, or you just keep adding more of the same color into the well as it gets used up?
Yeah, I keep using the color until I can't dig anymore, and then I'll just fill it back up in the same location. That way, I have muscle memory. I don't have muscle memory with this new palette that I'm using now, but I will. I'm sure I will here in a little bit. But yeah, I really like it that I can put that whole 1.5 inches in the well, and I don't have to just put a corner in and then rub it on the palette to get it fully mixed. So I'm liking that a lot.
But you do all your mixes in like a separate mixing palette, right?
Yeah. So I make pools like this with my yellows, my reds, and my blues. And then, so I'll take some of the blue here, put it on the paper. If that's too blue and I want violet, then I take a red and I try and mix as much as I can on the paper itself. That way it stays fresh.
So do you ever do plein air painting?
Yeah.
How do you handle it with those giant brushes and all those?
Believe it or not, I still use the giant brush. Where's my palette here? Hold on, let me see. I think I have it real quick. It must be packed away. I thought I had it. But my palette's maybe this wide by this. They're just the little pans. So
yeah,
there I have to dip the edge of the paint brush in to get the paint. But I still use the big brushes for the big washes and then scale down as needed.
Wow.
Craig, when you're doing plein air, is your painting oriented vertically or at a 45-degree angle or flat, or what do you do?
I usually have about the same angle as this, unless I'm doing a demonstration, and then it's more vertical. So usually I have probably a 15 to 20 degree tilt. So a lot of times I'm sitting or standing up, and at an arm's length is kind of where I paint from. So.
Any other questions for Craig? If not, we can
Yes.
end this meeting.
Question. I just started looking at all I just love this painting. But I have a question about whether you would not, I was thinking the boat doesn't have a shadow under it. You don't typically do that, or do a thing in the water to anchor the boat?
There's, I probably would put some kind of shadow or something. And what I usually do too, here's another tip, is usually my paintings, I get to this point, they're 95 to 98% done. And I used to take them in the house and put them on the mantle of the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take me 3 or 4 days to figure out how to finish it. And I found a little trick, and it works for me, and it's worked for a few artists that I've told. If I take a picture of it with my iPhone, and then if I just look at it on my iPhone, I know exactly how to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the detachment or what it is, but.
Good
So,
tip.
Would you map this painting?
Yeah, I usually do like a 3-inch map around it, and and I usually use, it's called American Frame. I used to do cut my own mats and frames, but now I just get them from American Frame. I just measure the actual piece and they do all the math. I usually just do a single mat with a black core, so that gives me a little pizzazz without spending extra money.
A black core means that the inside is black?
Right, so it gives you a little dimension. It gives you kind of a two mat feel with only one mat. Yeah. And I usually use a simple
color on this, or a color?
Good idea.
Well, with all the shows I enter, you know, it's got to be a neutral, so it's white or off-white, and then I usually use a silver to gunmetal color on the frame, a metal frame, and I just put those together, and it comes with a plexi backboard and everything.
Oh, cool. Is that through American Frame?
Yeah, AmericanFrame.com. And for a half sheet, it usually comes out to about $85 to frame it. And, you know, if I was doing my own frames like I was, I'm only saving maybe 10%. You know, and I used all that time to make all the frames and cut the mats and everything. So now we get all that time back, and really I'm not spending that much more. So
I don't know
I'd rather paint than,
if there's a quality thing or not, but Michael's will also do a custom frame, custom size, and I think they're less than that, but I ordered a smaller one, so maybe that was the reason. But
yeah, sometimes you can get some really good deals if they have a 2-for-1 or whatever.
Are you using rough paper or cold pressed?
I use rough paper. I used to use cold press when I first started exclusively. Now I never use cold press. I'm either rough or hot press.
Is it a bright white?
Yes, it's bright white. So I like the bright white just because, you know, if you think about being in a church with stained glass windows, you know, the windows really don't sing until you have a bright sun that's coming through, you know, and why wouldn't you want the brightest paper that you have, you know? Because what's happening is you're looking through this color and coming back. If it's a darker white than this, it won't be as vibrant.
Craig?
Yes.
Are you happy with your wide brush? And if so, what's the brand and size of it?
Yeah, so, you know, I always say this is kind of like my Willie Nelson brush, you know, I've had it for 25 years. So I can see the enamel and everything. So here's kind of what it looks like. So it was a Tsunami brush. It was a Cheap Joe's brand. It's a synthetic. So now I think it's called, I don't know if it's Dragon Tongue or something silly like that, but I think that's the equivalent of it now. But I have a 3-inch to 1.5, and I have I have a lot of 1.5-inch brushes that I use. But
how about
for the most
hockey
part,
brushes?
I just have, you know, this one, and that's mostly just to get the paper wet if I need to. I have some Sterling Edwards, like bristle brushes that I use sometimes for painting evergreens or something like that. But other than that, it's pretty much the brushes that you've seen that I use over and over. I've got my money's worth out of them, you know? So I used to be the type where you go to a demonstration or workshop and, you know, the person saying, oh, I have this brush, and it's like, okay, if I get that brush, I'm going to paint so much better, you know? It's like getting Tiger Woods' clubs, right?
No.
If you get Tiger Woods' clubs, you're going to hit it like Tiger Woods, and it just never happens, you know? So you just have to practice with the brushes that you have to actually make it work.
Well, Craig, this has been very impressive. I've certainly enjoyed myself here.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you,
and have a great
Craig.
time, too.
Thank you. It was great.
Outstanding.
Thank you,
Fabulous.
Ralph, again for putting all this together. Thank you
This was
again.
wonderful.
My pleasure.
Good
So
job, Ralph.
we'll get together in 2 weeks then on a little Zoom conversation.
And thank you for the help with the PayPal. That should have gone through, Ralph.
Okay,
So,
I'll take a look.
All righty. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonderful work.